Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rahma. Michael is the author of So Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
To the brightness within you, and the truth that is rooted within me.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce. And we would like to thank Carol Guy for all of her shifting around and all the work that she's done. We've gone to, when we changed our time yesterday, starting at noon our time, 1 o'clock Eastern time. And she had to go through and she had to make changes on the intro and the outro music. She had to get in touch with we're partnered now with another radio station that's called, my mind just went blank. It's, I apologize. It's Impact Player Music Nation Radio Network. And they made their changes on their website. And, just a lot of things had to happen just to make one little shift of an hour. And so we want to thank them for all of their time and effort to get all that changed. Our call-in number, we'd love to hear from you, is 646-200-4169. Give us a call with your questions or your comments. And today is Memorial Day 142. And Michael will talk a little more about that. And Kim's not with us, but David is on. And so welcome, Michael.
Thank you, sweetie. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I guess it depends what part of the country we're in. We're now starting our show an hour earlier than normal, so we're delighted that you're here. Welcome, David. How are you this morning? This afternoon?
I'm doing well, Michael. Thank you very much. Glad to be on board at 1 o'clock.
And I'm glad to be sharing the planet with you. Our conversation this morning was very powerful and empowering, and the direction that everything is moving is right on cue, is right on track. We're just doing the best we can do to accelerate the healing of ourselves, each other, and the planet. And that's our purpose with this work. So we're delighted everybody's with us.
Yeah, there's something I wanted to share with you. We talked about this movie with Tom Cruise, The Last Samurai. When I went up to check it out, then what came up was The Samurai, The Last Warrior, and it's a documentary. And the opening words of it, I watched a few minutes of it to see what it was going to be like, and I called you immediately because I thought this was just so right in alignment with our conversation. And the opening scene is men in battle, and it says the samurai, they were born of war. They existed to serve their masters and to vanquish their master's enemies, which is so true today as what our conversation was about, and about wars and the purpose of them. So I watched a few minutes of that. I'll email it to you because I think it's going to be one of those that you can stream it on Netflix, and it looks really, really, really interesting. So adding another little piece, I just thought that was so, they were born of war, and they existed to serve their masters and to vanquish their master's enemies. Not their enemies, their master's enemies. So it's all in alignment.
Yeah, and of course, who's the master's enemy? Anybody who doesn't agree with us?
Right.
And what David's talking to is that Jeanie and I watched a movie last night which perpetrates the whole idea or the insanity that there's such a thing as a good death, and that war is an honorable and a good thing to do. And it's amazing how many people still believe that. And, you know, Hitler had a thing that he called the big lie. And the idea was that if you tell a lie, make a lie big enough and tell it often enough, people will come to believe it. And there are those who believe that because there are people who have been brainwashed through the use of destructive speech about some other group of people, and you hand them weapons, that it's okay to go kill, and that killing is not murder, that it's an okay thing to do, and that the systems based upon that have honor. And we're here to totally dishonor that, totally, completely. We want to honor the people involved who have lost themselves in the insanity that goes against everything that is human. And in honoring those people, we must dishonor the insanity that takes them out of the space of love, out of the space of being. And as Jeanie and I watched last night, the movie The Last Samurai, it's an interesting play when you've got the brain cells to see it, that shows how people are brainwashed to serve their masters, and whoever the masters are, whatever shots they call, doesn't matter whether they're fair, doesn't matter whether they're ethical, doesn't matter whether they support people or not. If they support their masters, then who cares? Go kill and call that honorable, and live an honor or have an honorable death is the whole idea. There's one scene where there's a little boy who's probably about 8, and he repeats what his father told him about, you know, it would be honorable for him to die in battle. What a thing to structure your children with. What an insanity, what an offense to the truth of human life. And so in honoring those who have been forced to murder, those who have been murdered, those who have been injured, those who have been maimed, those who went into that insanity believing what they were told, and that it was good to kill another and to call that heroic. We invite you each to revisit that whole idea and question. If you hold the newborn child, pardon me, you get a direct experience of what a human life is. And I'd offer that's what we humans are designed to live. And interestingly enough, if you put a different reality into another's mind, if you hypnotize someone, then the mind will produce images and pictures and justifications for that hypnosis. You go back to the man named Yeshua, and he said, here's the rule, love those who hate you, do good to those who despitefully use you. But if we've been brainwashed with, no, you kill those who hate you, you kill those who offend your masters, then our minds will produce images that there's someone deserving of killing. If you brought a newborn child, that tender presence of the active love of God into the world, could that newborn even conceive of such an insanity? I would offer no. We are here to confront that insanity and to make a difference, to change that process. And we change that process through forgiveness. And forgiveness has nothing to do with letting other people off the hook because of what's going on inside of us. It's the tool with which we go inside of ourselves and remove the brainwashing of the masters who would rule us with their hostility and fear, and make of others the object of attention that deserves our murderous rage. So to honor those who have been forced to go to war, who brought the pain and the trauma and the insanity of that home to inflict their families with it, we hold the space for healing. I really honor a man who was formerly a warrior. His name is Daniel Brinkley, and he was a hired assassin, loved his job, was pretty mean character all of his life, and had a near-life experience, a case where his body was killed by a lightning bolt. He experienced clinical death, but had the direct experience of his human life again, and has resolved that by stopping the act of murder in his world and by going and sitting with thousands of those who've been forced into that insanity, holding their hands in VA hospitals and walking them through the process of death consciously and with the active presence of love. Daniel, we honor you for what you've done and what you're doing in the world. And thank you for your service. And we join you in that service. And our service is by bringing forward the idea of forgiveness. And that forgiveness has nothing to do with letting somebody else off the hook because there's something offensive in our experience, something inside of us that's hurting or in pain, but rather bringing forward the tool with which we go inside ourselves and remove our pain, our fear, our rage, our sadness, our grief, so that we cannot even conceive of another human being worthy of slaughter, but rather we live as the active presence of love, bringing that love forward continuously into the world. That's what we're here to do. If you're not familiar with the forgiveness conversation, we invite you to go to our website, www.whyagain.com, and on the right side you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets, about a half a dozen links down the page. Click on that link if you would. Download the first 4 links under that. You'll get the whole story of how to go inside yourself and remove the source of all pain. It's called forgiveness, and we invite you to put that to work. And in honoring the Memorial Day process, what we're inviting each person to do is to pick one situation in your life today where you are willing to forgive, where you are willing to remove some hostility or fear in you, and by so doing, bringing a shift of critical mass to planet Earth so that the insanity of self-destruction and of destruction of others can be ended on planet Earth. We need to get to a critical mass in order for that to change. And in order for our children, our children's children and their children to have a place to grow up, because we're at the point where there are a few insane ones in the world, that is, those without the active presence of love in them, that could push one button and end the game for everybody. We ask you to do your part in reaching critical mass in forgiveness. David, any thoughts on that?
Well, Michael, the thing that always comes up for me is that most people, right, wonderfully so, have not had that experience of what it is that you're talking about as far as being in war. They've seen war. They've experienced it through the media, and they've heard people talk about it. Yet there's few people have had that frontline experience, so to speak. And though that they have a reality in the mind of what it's like and what the experience could be, they do not have the experience of it. So therefore, it's easy to get it justified, to have it validated, and to go along with it because they're coming from fear as if that fear is real in their life. And that's the whole premise of being able to create a war anyway, is to put people into fear and to threat. And then the mind will justify doing anything. Once that there's an experience of it, though, then the shift totally changes. Kind of like what you and I were talking about this morning about the process that I'm in right now of the death of a second son. And to describe that, to describe what the feelings and the emotions and the just going through that, it's indescribable. And most people will comment and say, I don't know what it is that you're going through. I can only imagine it. And prior to these 2 events happening in my life, I could only imagine it as well. And there's no preparation for it. And then being involved in it, it certainly changes life, the perception of life, and the experience of life totally. And I think that most people are experiencing life based out of what it is that's been told to them through the fear and hostility. And to consciously wake up to that, and then to be involved in the changing of that, is quite challenging, as you and I talked about this morning, because one of the things that I'm now experiencing and going through is looking at all of the beliefs that I took on and to now question everything and the death and what happens and the meanings, and it raises up so many questions, and along with those questions, the feelings of sadness and anger and frustration and unknowing. And I think that just ties right in with what we were talking about, what you were just talking about war and people doing it. You know, being a Vietnam veteran, and I was on the front line, and the change in the culture and the social realm of things was the waking up of, you know, in the 60s and 70s, there were so many demonstrations, there were so many people that said, hey, whoa, wait a minute, what is it that's going on? Because it was brought into their living room, you know, as people talk about, that they actually experienced it or had an experience of a realization of what was really going on. Well, now, with the way that things, since that there was a shift and people woke up to it and there were some changes that were made. And now, though, it's almost become entertainment in a way of watching it. And I don't think that it became entertainment in a way so much as it is in a fun way, so much as it is in the graphics of all of it, the total, what's the word? Well, I'll tell you, I was having lunch with one of my brothers the other day, last week, and he was talking about how the weapons that are being used today and how accurate and what they can do from anywhere, you know, from and for people that really don't know, a lot of the destruction is coming from someone that's sitting here back in the States watching a screen on a TV and watching things blow up and kill people. And he was describing this, to me, it was a horrific scene of a person that was shot and killed hundreds of miles away by someone sitting in that, and the accuracy of that. And he expressed some humor in that. And I just sat there rather than to create some real stress levels getting raised up. It's like, how could we even find that as entertaining? How can we even see humor in the taking of another human life? That's called the enemy. And so, waking up to this whole thing certainly raises the stress level for people, and ask them to question what it is how are we really living our life, and how are we doing it day to day? As we talk about, you want to stop the war. Well, rather than to focus on stopping the war, let's see if let's stop the war within ourselves. Let's stop the wars within our family, because if we can't stop it within our family, if we can't stop it within ourselves, what chance do we have of? Well, there is no chance of stopping it any other way. This is the only way we're able to stop it. So that's my thoughts around it.
Yeah, well, I'm right there in harmony with you. Is Dr. Tim with us today, Jeanie?
No, he's not.
Oh, well, that's a bummer. I'm sure he'd have some great thoughts to share with us, but in any event, that's, I think, David, you're right on track, and it's time for us to root these things out at their base and to remove whatever did not belong within us. And so it's time for us to do the awakening process. And as we enter into forgiveness, and it's interesting how forgiveness has been removed from the culture, and the why and how of that would also be a very powerful thing to understand. And if you force into someone's mind that which does not belong in a human mind, if that person does not have the tools with which to remove what's been placed there, where do you go? What do you do? They're stuck with it, and that which they're stuck with tends to continue to run their whole process. And so here we are waking up to the essence of human life and offering the tools of forgiveness in changing our human lives. That's our purpose for being here. And we're delighted to be sharing the show with everyone that's on the show. And if you have a question for us, if you have a thought for us, if you have a question on the tools, please pick up the phone and call us. Our number to call in and ask questions is 646-200-4169. 646-200-4169. When you get on the cool. When you get on the show, if you push a 1, that will tap you right into exactly where Jeanie is in the chat room, and she'll put you on the air. So, Jeanie, let's have our first caller on the air. Fabulous.
First caller is area code 509. You're on the air. Who do we have?
Good morning. This is Sandra again today.
Well, hey there, young lady. How are you?
Good. Very good. I do have a question. This morning after our conversation yesterday about bodies, and it may tie in with what you have been talking about in some way. In our service, which you talked about to others, the role that our quote-unquote body that we don't have serves. And when you say things like thoughts in a human mind, what do you mean by that as it relates to that we are not bodies?
Well, we have, when you look into it, you will find that we humans have a mind and we have a pseudo-mind. And that pseudo-mind is a device that stores information, specifically, as we talked yesterday, nested frequencies. So you have a set of nested frequencies in your so-called body, in your storage system, that I know are there, and I'm going to cause those frequencies to fire now with a thought. And that storage device that shoots back information based on whatever's stored there will give you a piece of information. You have no choice about that. Whatever information is there is what's going to fire. Now, the second after it fires, you could change it, but you have absolutely no choice in the moment that I resonate those brain cells. And so when I say don't think about the color of your car, notice that something fires in brain cells. Your energetic system stores every frequency, every thought, every feeling that comes to it holographically in every cell of your structure. So someone who's listening to the show has a blue car. Blue maybe was the first thought. Someone else's thought was white. Someone else's thought was red. And someone else's thought was, oh, I'm going to see if I can keep from having those brain cells fire. But they still fired because it operates by a simple law called the law of resonance. Now, people call that process thinking. And it's got nothing whatsoever to do with thinking. All it is the resonance of energy in the structure. A nested frequency fires in response to another frequency. If I hit a middle C tuning fork on a desk and I put it in front of a second middle C tuning fork, that second middle C tuning fork is going to fire. The second middle C tuning fork is not thinking any more than when I say don't think about the color of your car. You're thinking if your car is blue and your brain cells fire up and shoot out the thought blue. Or what appears as a thought. All it is data. It's information. So in this energy system, we have storage of frequencies, nested frequencies. Then we have a mind. And actually, it was interesting last night as we watched this film that we're talking about, The Last Samurai, which You definitely want to have worksheets with you and breathe if you watch it. But they talk about the minds that we have. And so this pretend mind is a function of the storage of information. And whatever you put into it, if you put into it, like for instance in this film last night, this is going back into the 1800s, and Tom Cruise is a hired killer. He kills Indians for a living, and they want him to come. He's become a drunk because he's committed atrocities and can hardly handle his own life. He really wants to destroy himself. But he gets an invitation for much money to go to Japan and take care of these other tribal leaders called samurai. So he speaks of them as the enemy and the savage, et cetera, as he's been taught to do. And his carbon-based memory, his so-called bodies, and every time I use the word body, I put it in quotes, his body's mind fires, enemy, kill, my job, hey, I'm a hero now. And then he goes and he's captured by the samurai, and he ends up living with them and comes to see how much truth there is in their culture and what they're really about, and it's not anything about being the enemy or anything less. So when he's told he's going to get paid lots of money to go kill these people for the emperor, and he gets to observe that he's really not killing them for the emperor, he's killing them at the emperor's command, and the emperor is controlled by the businessmen who want to make money instead of live in a culture of ethics, which is what the samurai are portrayed at least as wanting to do. And as he builds new brain cells, new nested frequencies, he comes not only to admire but to love these people and to honor them, and ends up fighting with them instead of against them. So he's changed the content of his carbon-based memory, of his so-called body's mind, by having a different experience. And the real mind is the mind of our original being. The newborn child, the essence of love, has a mind, and that mind's function is to direct the content of this carbon-based memory system, or this so-called body's mind. And so we would have an analogy of a computer and a computer operator. When one has totally fallen into the operation of the so-called body's mind, then they're being run by a computer. They're being run by an information system which will spit back anything that's stored in it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the true, the untrue, the insane. But if the insane has been put in with this is truth, then insanity becomes truth, because this carbon-based memory system, this body's mind, can't think, can't distinguish. It just shoots up whatever information is in it. But then there's who we are, we human beings. And we human beings have the ability, if we're awake in our being, to change the nested frequencies that have come to us genetically, or to refuse the frequencies that the brainwashers in our culture want to fill us with, so that we get to function truly out of our human beingness, which, if you hold a newborn, you obviously know it is the active presence of love. I know that you have some children there, some grandchildren, and if you were to observe, you know the first time you held them in your arms, the absolute awesome presence that they were. How many things have you seen them being filled with or being shown, say, for instance, through their time at school? They come back with the tales of the new frequencies that are being nested in their structures and maybe being run by it. Have you observed that at all?
Oh, absolutely.
And how they lose that awesome, fabulous, there aren't words big enough to describe that human beingness that they have in response to what their so-called bodies' minds have been brainwashed with by the culture, by, say, for instance, as I say, the school system. And you watch how they shift from that awesome presence of being into something maybe a little less functional than our human beingness. And being run by nested frequencies in this structure is tantamount to losing one's human life. you look at the average adult in the culture, think about the person that, anybody that's listening, think about a person that you've been taught is the enemy. And if you look at this whole insanity of war, you'll notice that there's always a derogatory name for the enemy. It's a kike, it's a gook, it's a Jap, it's a, whatever, a Nazi, whatever the word is, it's used to manipulate one into functioning out of whatever fears and hostilities have been structured within us so that we can be used in order to go kill those beings that, when they came out of the womb, were just as pure and just as awesome a presence of love as anybody you've ever held, your own child, your own grandchild. By the way, Sandra, I don't know if I shared with you, but I'm getting ready to have the opportunity in December to hold my first grandchild, and that's going to be awesome. It's really cool, at 42 to be having a grandchild already. That's just so fabulous and so awesome. But I know you've had that experience several times, but I'm sure you've observed how the degradation of being takes over as the culture fills the mind of those little ones, or the body's mind, not the true mind, with its insanity and its cultural norms and its demands and its craziness. And you think about the average person in our culture, how much human life is there out there anymore? Watch the tube. How much human life, how much of that awesome presence of love do we see? It's almost gone. And when we nest a frequency within this house that we have, within this piece of clay that is animated by our being that we're designed to consciously express through, when we nest a frequency of hostility or fear, we put somewhere into the structure a frequency that begins the degradation of the field. And where that degradation happens, there's going to be a cleanup crew. That bacteria we talked about yesterday, that virus is going to come in and say, I have lunch. I can grow a whole huge family here. Let's see if we can take over this house and eat the whole meal. And the system as it was designed is designed to throw off any of that does not belong. And if it doesn't have the vitality to throw it off, then those frequencies cause a degradation not only of the mental, emotional function, not only the disappearance of the human beingness that we are, but it begins the decay and the dissolution of the field itself. If you go back into the ancient Aramaic physics language, you hear the statement made, with man death began. We made the process up. And what we're here to do is to change it.
So what I just heard you say, in describing, when we say I'm not a body, well, I'm something to my mind. And so I just heard you say this house of clay that we express through.
Right.
So is that the instrument that we are using for service?
Correct. A spacesuit. An energetic spacesuit designed to last for eternity and be a place for the awesome expression of our human beingness to all the world. When we come in, that's what we're prepped for.
Okay.
Then along comes life, resonates different things out of our genetics, fills us with different frequencies, and all of a sudden, are we any longer functioning as this awesome presence of love and bringing forward our purpose in the world, or has some power structure taken us over, and is it running our lives in a way that we were never designed to be run? And that's the to me, that was one of the most powerful lessons in this film, The Last Samurai, because it shows just how these cultures have been run. Now, it doesn't bring in any, deeply meaningful way the active presence of love, although you see the expression of love come about between these two men who were designed to be, by the world, mortal enemies as they come to admire and care for each other. And if we could just get these non-human body-mind units to remove the hostilities and fears the world had fed to us, their diseases would go away, their light would come on, and they would start to express a purpose that is far beyond what humanity has ever conceived of. And we'd start living as actual humans on planet Earth, rather than this so often sad parody called a human life, filled with strife and rage and grief and pain and fear. And, of course, if you go back into the ancient scriptures, it says, to he that overcomes, he will not taste of the second death. He will become a pillar in the temple of my God. This is physics. This isn't theology. What they're saying is, should you, being awesome presence of love, remove, overcome, forgive every hostility and fear that came with your bloodline, that your cultures tried to put in you, you will not taste of the death of your energy field. It will carry on as the eternal device it was designed for. You will become a pillar in the temple. In the scriptures, this so-called body-mind unit is called a temple. You will become a pillar. What is a pillar? It is a fixture, and it says you will go out no more. In other words, you'll stop killing yourself. You'll change the habit and the pattern of death on planet Earth to what we were originally designed for. And that's what we're here to support and inspire in our world.
So our house of clay, what we express through, is a lowered frequency that's created a body/picture of who we think we are.
Right. The carbon-based memory system, again, as I said yesterday, if you could look through your body's eyes, what we call again, the word body is always in quotes, if you could look through its eyes and see who I really was, you'd see this whirring mass of electrons, protons, neutrons, and light. You would not see a body. You would see who I really am.
Right.
And I have this instrument, but because your eye cannot pick up on the frequency range of my instrument, it's limited to visible light. Your brain produces the picture it was brainwashed to produce when you were 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 18 months of age. You were taught to make of my energy field a face. You were taught to see hair. You were taught to see eyes and eyebrows and a nose and cheek. And so you replace me with an image in your brain. And that's what this brain is it's a device designed to make images. And our essence is that of love. Our essence is that of the Creator. And you remember that first commandment, I love, am your Creator, and don't put any graven images in front of me. Don't cover me up with those pictures that your culture has taught you to see of yourself and others. And then you get to experience the awesome presence of who you are and express as that. And if we have in our genetics 1,000 generations of insanity, it's going to take a little time to undo the insanity and to even comprehend the possibility. When I was talking with David this morning, I was speaking about how you get a view in this movie, The Last Samurai, a view of this giant oak that's been growing within the consciousness of we humans, and that giant oak is a tree of death made of hostility, rage, grief, fear, and pain. And that it goes back into traditions that have been brainwashed into us by those who either didn't know any better or didn't care, only wanted servants and slaves. But you get a view of how long this has been going on and what's required to change it. You know, that when you open your eyes and if your partner resonates some hostility or fear that you haven't dealt with, you build a picture in your mind of them being responsible for what you're feeling, for what's going on inside of you. And to really make a shift to, oh, wait a minute, this is going on inside of me. This picture my mind is showing me that I should lash out at this person because what I'm feeling is all their fault is a totally false picture made of my own insanity. Then I enter into the use of the tools of removing my insanity, and I function as the awesome, gentle presence of a human life of love with this person who sits in front of me that yesterday I was saying, I honor you, I cherish you, I will love you forever. But today, when you resonated my rage and grief and pain, I wanted to make of you an image, a graven image that makes you something less than who you are. When we start to remember who we are and who the people around us are, and I mean not just the local people, not just the people in our own family system. There are people who are really great at doing that, but they still want to be able to justify going off and killing people because somebody told them, gave them derogatory words about those people and made those people the enemy. Excuse me. We've got 7.5 billion awesome beings on this planet, awesome presence of love. Now, at the moment where you resonate something in me that I haven't dealt with, I may not think you're so awesome, but that's my work. And when you think someone else isn't that awesome presence of love because you're feeling something less than that love, that's your work. And just to, it's such a giant leap to make the shift to comprehending that. It's such a giant leap because we've been at this game of blame and hostility, fear for so long. It's such a deep-rooted growth in us. Let's go all the way back to, one of the first offenses that we see in the ancient scriptures is there's this woman named Eve who takes an apple and gives it to this guy named Adam, and now they're in trouble. And, the Creator ostensibly says, well, who did that? What's going on here? What does Adam say? First blame game. What does he say? That woman. And then it's not only the woman he's going to blame, that woman that you gave me. He's got God to blame too. And you look through the scriptures and you hear so much stuff blamed on the Creator. No wonder so many people don't want anything to do with that dude. Because we blamed everything that we humans have done on the Creator. And love doesn't do any of those things. Any of those things. None of those things belong to the Creator. That's all our human stuff, and we've been blaming since, Adam and Eve first opened their mouths in that particular account of the story. And it's time for us to get back to our human beingness and who we are, Think about your child that you just cherish so deeply. Why don't you cherish the Russian peasant? Why don't you cherish the Persian man working in the fields in Iran, Iraq, or Afghanistan the same way? Because they're made of the same stuff. And their parents remember who they are. It's time for us to remember who we are and to recognize that all of the insanity we've been doing on the planet and all of the diseases that we experience come about as a result of that insanity, and that we can individually and collectively change it. Does that make sense of your project? I know you've got a huge project on your plate and taking this into the medical world. That's so awesome that you're embarking on that journey, Sandra.
It has been very helpful. It's been very helpful, and I've had a shift in, I know it's words, but words are symbols, making a shift that believe that disintegrating energy is my wake-up energy. Instead of using the word triggered, which denotes that something out there has triggered my response, my disintegrative energy or thought, I don't use that anymore. I just use, I'm experiencing disintegrative energy because it has released me from my mind wanting to go out to connect it to something that I can, that my carbon-based memory can hook to as a cause.
Right.
And it's been freeing for me. And having this conversation yesterday and today has been very helpful, Michael, and I thank you.
Awesome. And remember that it is your journey to that destination that will make you whole.
Yes.
You know, if you listen to Yeshua, he didn't say, I'm the miracle worker, I fixed it all for you. Now, there's a big story on the planet that he's the miracle worker, he's the only one, and it's all up to him. But if you go back to his teaching, if you actually want to believe what the man said, you know, there's one particular case where this woman has this 12-year issue of blood, and she does something that changes her life. And it involves Yeshua, but Yeshua is not the cause, and he does not claim to be the cause. He tells her where the real power lies, and he says, your faith made you whole.
Absolutely.
He attempted to key each person he connected with into a power that resided within them. He did not say, cry my name out loud and everything will be wonderful. He said, I come to connect you with the spirit of truth. And when he says, do it in my name, in Aramaic, that's an idiom that says, I've shown you how to do it. Here's the way to do it. Follow this pattern and you'll be able to do exactly what it is that I'm doing. If you don't follow the pattern, if you buy somebody else's story, then you'll lose the ability to do that. And, of course, there are people who have a vested interest in people believing that they're powerless, that they're weak, that they're helpless. But that's anything but what the Master taught. He taught exactly how this organism worked, how this suit of clay worked, exactly how to heal it, exactly how to remove what didn't belong. And he demonstrated exactly how to live an actual human life. And as you're working within that community of people who believe it's the latest bacteria, the latest virus, and you teach them about their being and give them glimpses of their being, and then show them the tool of forgiveness and how to collapse what never belonged in their being, you will show them how to heal all of their diseases. And as I say, it's a process. It's about building brain cells. It takes time. And we are always here to support you. I know Dr. Andraki in Las Vegas, who introduces this work to virtually every patient that he has. When he had us train 20 medical assistants, he introduced us and he said, you know, and he's been doing this work for about 13 years, and he said to his medical assistants, I can give people pills forever and it won't heal anything. This is the only thing I know that really heals. And so what he does is he introduces virtually every patient that he has to the tools of healing and says, here, go get on the radio show, listen, ask your questions. And so as things move along, you're certainly welcome to invite anybody that you're working with, including the naturopath that you're working with there and the medical doctor, to tap into the show and to ask questions. Is there a place where this doesn't make sense? Is there a place where this isn't logical? Because there is a very deeply sophisticated belief system on the planet that keeps the power outside of us. And the root of the word sophistry means falsehood. It means telling a lie and making the lie look good and look true. And that's basically what runs the whole game of hostility and fear on the planet. And so we're here to undo the sophistries and to support every mind, heart, and being in doing so. So we're delighted to have you on the team, and we're certainly delighted to be on your team.
That's the way I look at it. We're all in this together.
We're in this together.
Thank you so much.
Please keep in touch with us.
I will.
A daily call with another refined question would be awesome.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Love to both of you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jeanie, you've got another caller, sweetie?
We actually have two more callers, so I'm not sure if we're going to have time to get them both. We've got 10 minutes. Area code 952. You're on the air. Who do we have? Area code 952.
952, are you saying, Jeanie? It's really hard to hear you, sweetie.
Yeah, area code 952. You're on the air.
Oh, much better. 952.
Oh,
you're on the air?
Up. They just hung up.
Oh, we lost them. Okay,
area code 619. You're on the air.
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
We are very well. Who are we speaking with? Where are you calling from?
San Diego, and my name is Coco, and just started following a few weeks ago because I had a lot of issues I wanted to be helped with. And you make a lot of sense. You know.
Well, I'm making sense for you. Have you been using the forgiveness work? I say I'm delighted that it's making a lot of sense for you. And have you been using the forgiveness worksheet process to work with the tools at this point?
Not yet. I've been listening a lot. Yeah, and I need to learn how to forgive, mostly myself, and then the rest of the other people that cause pain on my life, you know.
Do you have access to the Internet?
Yes, but I need the Internet link, but I need for you to repeat it real slow because sometimes my brain don't want to work too rapidly.
All right. Well, let's repeat it slowly. If you go to www.
Yes.
Dot.
Yes.
WHY.
WHY.
Again.
Okay.
.com.
.com. Okay. Thank you very much.
www.whyagain.com. And on the right-hand side of the page, about 6 items down, you'll see download worksheets. And if you click on that, the first 4 items will give you the whole story of how forgiveness works. And just to offer the thought, forgiveness isn't about I'm going to forgive you, I'm going to forgive myself. Forgiveness is how you go inside yourself and remove those things that take you out of love. Remove the hostility and fear that never belonged there in the first place. And rediscover your true being, which is the awesome presence of love. That's the stuff you and I and every one of us is made of. And as you forgive, as you use that worksheet process, one of the links on the website under Download Worksheets is a 7-step worksheet process. The first 4 links will explain the whole thing to you, and that will give you the forgiveness tool. And watch how things change in your life. It's awesome when you start to use it.
Thank you very much. And I will continue to listen to you guys.
All right. Well, thank you for your call, and you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Jeanie, do we have any other callers or any other anything else going on in the chat room that we could be aware of?
No, Dr. Tim is with us now, but there's no questions in the chat room, and nobody else has their hand up on the other person didn't call back in yet. So.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Dr. Tim, do you have anything to share with us today?
Are you there?
I am. I can hear you loud and clear. Do you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, I apparently had my mute button on.
I know how that goes.
I'm doing quite well. I had another meeting, as we've talked about, on our regularly scheduled noon meeting on Tuesdays. I'm going to have to adjust to the new radio time and change that meeting. But just doing well. I finally got the audio up on my website for the talk I gave on Sunday during the service, and I'm working on trying to edit the audio for the Why Again workshop to see if I can separate it out from the video and put it up, because otherwise it's just too large a file to put up or email anybody. And
right.
And I will also try to just burn a DVD of it and get you a copy. But I've heard from several people yesterday about their good experience on Sunday, and so looking forward to the group tonight, and just chugging along.
Awesome. Well, that's fabulous, and I assume you'll have some new folks who join the group tonight, and it'll be fun to hear tomorrow about what their level of comprehension was, and their working with the tools, and where it goes from there. So It's
I also
awesome people to support you.
I also thoroughly enjoyed the conversation yesterday. I was listening as you were talking about the medical aspect of things and how to deal with the question of, okay, so I get that I don't have a body, so who is it that's throwing up in the toilet there? And as I listened to the explanation, it dawned on me how much it made sense and how easy it was to integrate what you were saying. And in the next moment, I realized that 5 years ago or 6 years ago when I got introduced to this material, it wasn't so easy to integrate it. It wasn't so easy to keep that concept, even though it might make sense when I heard you say it the first time. A half a day later, when I would think back to it, it would elude me. And so that's one thing I would offer to the listening audience is that it does get easier to not just comprehend the concepts, but to hold on to them the more I get exposed to them. And Michael's words for that process are building the brain cells. And I talk to people about growing in an experience that allows me to have a whole different perspective, so that my perception, which is a very active process, is able to incorporate more of what's available for me to perceive. When I'm first introduced to a new set of material, I'm only able to perceive the smallest fraction of the new ideas. But with repeated exposure and the attitude that what I already believe I know must be either only partially true or completely false, I'm able to add new material and new understanding with every repetition. So I know it's a difficult thing, but I just encourage people to keep listening and have that open attitude and trust that it will come and it will get easier and easier to remember.
Well, and if you go back to Yeshua, the depth of understanding of this process that was owned in the Aramaic, you hear Yeshua saying that you have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And he speaks of those whose hearing do not hear and seeing do not see, which doesn't make a lot of sense until you understand the difference between the carbon-based memory system, the so-called body's mind, and the true mind. And if we're only functioning out of carbon-based memory, if we're only functioning out of what was called the body's mind, then we can only play in the realities that it holds. And if it doesn't hold the reality that we are love, then it cannot give us that experience. So we've got to take away from it all of its insanity, all of its hostility and fear towards self and others, and arrive at a human life. And in doing so, create the best year yet of your eternal life. Thank you for being here with us. Bring a strange tomorrow. Remember, again, tomorrow we'll start an hour earlier, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll become 1 o'clock Eastern Time. That'll be our start time. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present that internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.